I saw the holy light. By Father Savvas Achileos. Chapter 1. The first years of my life. Miltiades Papaioannou was the given name of the 86-year-old monk about whom this book is written. He was holy, guileless, humble, and quiet as befits the devoted and faithful follower of Jesus. He was truly an exemplary figure overflowing with godliness. For 57 whole years he remained standing during the greater part of day and night as a diligent guard of the Holy Sepulchre. This holy place is where the heart of orthodoxy resides and from which flows endless love and grace. On the day of his monastic ordination, Miltiades Papaioannou received, from the Patriarch of Jerusalem Damianos I, the name of Mitrophanous Papaioannou. A meeting with the Holy Geronda was able to inspire in the visitor and pilgrim an unlimited trust. His clear and sparkling eyes calmed the soul of those who conversed with him. His youthful face, in spite of his old age, appeared as if it were illumined by the light and the heavenly grace of the sanctified environs. In the presence of such a person, one literally was to hang from every word coming from this holy man and unreservedly to submit to the truth of whatever he said. Chapter 2. The meeting with the Holy Geronda. It was morning during which we found time for a respite, to live in our hearts and minds the holy passions of Christ our Savior, the cross, the burial, and his resurrection. The Holy Geronda was waiting at the entrance of the Holy Sepulchre for the first few pilgrims, who were arriving early. As soon as Father Mitrophanous saw us from afar, he recognized that we were Orthodox Christians from Greece. People from all over the world came to worship at the tomb of Christ. It was not easy for one to ascertain who every pilgrim was and from where he came, but Father Mitrophanous had no difficulty in realizing that we were fellow countrymen. He was waiting for us to approach him, and after greeting us, he began to talk. "Do you come from the motherland of Greece, the free and Christian country? Welcome. May your pilgrimage be a blessing to you, my children. May Christ grant that you come every year to worship at this most sacred place." We thanked him, we kissed his hand. And the holy man, as if we were known to him for many years, began immediately to converse with us. Little by little the warm and cordial conversation changed into an account of the life of the old ascetic. He began telling us of shocking experiences which he had survived by the grace of the resurrected Christ. With much eagerness we wanted to hear the continuation and the end. As we listened we often held our breath as he related unbelievable events. Sometimes our eyes filled with tears of sympathy. At other times, a shiver seized us as we heard harrowing tales of his misadventures. Often we interrupted him in anticipation to learn more. "What happened then, Holy Geronda?" And he, full of emotion as if he were in the midst of these events, was reliving his hardships and his agonies. With a skillful and artistic turnabout of his words, he returned to his youthful years. After a few moments of silence, with simplicity and charm, he began to tell us his life story. In 1921 I was exactly 21 years old. My family was from the village of Pulansaki in the beautiful and renowned district of Pontus in Asia Minor called Karasounta. During the days of my youth there was a great persecution of the Christian Orthodox by the Turkish Muslims, when an unprecedented slaughter of the unprotected population was a daily occurrence. Women, children, and the elderly were killed indiscriminately. The rest, in order to save their lives, fled from place to hide. 1,000 families from our area were massacred. They were added to the legion of martyrs of the faith. Another 1,000 people were arrested, imprisoned, and made to suffer unimaginable tortures. Under the pressures of the horrible tribulations, afflictions, and hardships, their lives ended. Thus, they, too, received a heavenly reward for their sufferings. For those who lived, more trials and miseries awaited them. After their unfortunate arrest, they were transferred to a distant place in Kurdistan. I was among those surviving victims. My parents and my brothers did not live. They were killed and they died for their faith and love for their homeland. I was not able to be with them, to help, or even to hear their last words. It was a real hell. Without bread and water and with pain, fear, and agony in our hearts, heaven knows how we endured for 2 months the terrible way-worn trek from Karasounta to Kurdistan. During that time we were severely mistreated and persecuted. Upon reaching our destination, those who survived were fewer than those who had died. For those who lived, more misery and tribulations were in store for us. There was no food or water. Bodily rest was forbidden. The harrowing journey ended with unbearable forced labor such as the first Christians were compelled to do. The production of gravel had destroyed the little strength of the body that was left. Abandoned to the fury and harshness of the barbarians, we were living dead who could hardly move. We were ordered to break stones, at times during the burning heat of the sun, and at other times during bitter and severe cold. Prisoners were dying under the pressures of the desperate circumstances. A slight respite came my way when I was ordered to distribute the little bread allowed to each prisoner. It was prepared under primitive and filthy conditions with dough in which was kneaded all kinds of offensive materials and finally baked in a sooty and grimy oven. Despite the awful hardships, I felt God's mercy and love in the depths of my soul. I was thankful that my life was spared because eventually a blessing presented itself. I say this because in this distant region of Dieburger where I was a prisoner, I learned by word of mouth that nearby was a small subjugated community of Greek Orthodox Christians. After much pleading, I was granted permission to visit it. There I found a small church and the village priest. With my few hours of freedom, I went to confession and then I received Holy Communion. I was overjoyed and I felt, in spite of the afflictions and dangers, that I was in heaven. A mysterious sublime grace hovered over me and I was immersed in an ocean of spiritual bliss. At that moment, I made a promise to God, a heartfelt vow. Chapter 3 The Promise of My Life. The holy man remained silent for a few moments. When he raised his head, we saw a tear-filled face. Then what happened? Please tell us, Geronda. After a deep sigh, Father Mitrophanes continued, when I left the church that day enveloped in the invisible presence of divine grace, I raised my eyes to heaven and said, My God, help me to survive the inflictions from my captors and to serve the Holy Land which you sanctified with your presence on earth, where your divine feet walked. Help me to become your servant, to minister to the holy ascetics who guard and protect your sacred places. After I am free from this barbarous and inhumane imprisonment, I want to serve, O Lord, humbly wherever I can be useful. Help me to reach there where your grace is, and to perform even the lowest of tasks and whatever may be entrusted to me. I said these words, Father Mitrophanes continued, and I felt inside me a great relief. An invisible hand caressed my face. The heaviness, that was pressing on me because of my enforced confinement, left me and I felt, as if I were flying above the earth. My tired eyes filled with tears with the thoughts and feelings which seized me and did not help me to see where I was walking. I was seeing other worlds in my mind, worlds spiritual, holy, glorious and blessed. I was seeing not my slavery, the pain, the hunger, the lack of sleep and all of the other sufferings and hardships. I was seeing the holy lands, there where the Lord was born and was crucified. However, inside me in this blessed atmosphere of the mystical and invisible, another strange and ominous world emerged in me. It raised its threatening stature, by sowing seeds of desperation. It wanted persistently and revengefully to cut the wings of my soul. It sought to nail me down, to the earth of injustice. Before my eyes there arose the phantom of war, the dangers, the wild and inhumane slaughters, the indefinite future, the tomorrow with the unanswered questions. A battle strange and stubborn was created inside me. It struggled to strangle and to choke the heavenly feelings which delighted and thrilled my soul. Chapter 4 The Fearful Witch. With these thoughts which the holy man had, awful wretched memories overtook him. He felt, however, as we believed, a humble, but joyful relief because he had made a public confession to us. He told of his life in much detail. He relived all that his stormy life had endured. This recollection intensely impressed the stigmas of hardships and bitter memories on his personality. Again he lifted his face, looked at us and continued, as I was returning from the church and being tested by the battle of my feelings, I saw from afar a woman, seemingly an apparition who was holding something in her hand. It was a piece of cloth. She had raised it so as to be seen by the people nearby and she waved it in the air sometimes to the left and sometimes to the right. As she waved it, she was shouting something in the Turkish language. Since she was yelling from a distance, it was impossible to distinguish what she was saying. As I approached her, I gradually began to see the characteristics of her face. It was a face black and fearful. Her purple lips were swollen, her teeth, sparse and discolored. Her eyes as red-hot coals and her whole gruesome appearance brought to mind the abyss of hell. It really was a demon in the form of a woman. In her shouting she was boasting of her evil powers. Falsa, meaning witch, falsa. I foretell the future, and in the restless movements of her body, the sound of a bell which she held in her left hand, was heard. In hearing that she could presage the future, I was tempted to use her to solve my quandaries. A question immediately arose in my mind. When will the war and the slaughter end? I wanted to know when nothing else. This was an opportunity to shed a little light on the unknown and dark future of my life. I approached with fear, but with the determination to resolve my uncertainties. The fearful witch was a living delusion, claiming the ability to peer into the future. The wicked demon that was hiding inside her had influenced curious passers-by who in despair wanted answers to their life problems, too. I felt a strange force pushing me in the direction of this frightening creature. It was as if I was pulled by an invisible hand toward her and trying to join us. I took a few steps forward. Just a little space separated me from her. With a tremulous voice, I asked, "When will this war end?" "When? Answer me and ask me whatever price you want." To my agonizing question, the wild face of the witch began to quiver and to twitch. A dark evil world, wilder than the first, pushed the witch into a rage. Her eyes appeared ready to pop out of their sockets. Her face changed color. From black it became purple. Between her spaced teeth her tongue began to utter strange and peculiar words about events and incidents. Only with the help of the evil spirit could she be cognizant of her utterances. Now she continued in Turkish. "What a handsome young man you are. How handsome. Your face shines," she screeched. And in her cackling she was heard to speak to me in broken Greek. "You received communion. You are a cantor." This unclean spirit did not have the power to come near me, because I had received the body and the blood of Christ and because I had chanted for the glory of the Lord. Yes, chanting was a balsam for my troubled soul. It chased away despair. It strengthened me during the hours of my suffering. Then these questions arose in my mind. What are the explanations regarding light and darkness? What is the relation between God and evil? Suddenly the witch attempted to approach me with frightful screams. However, no demon had the power to face the grace, which surrounded me by the fact of Holy Communion, which I had received only a little while ago. God protected me. I backed off a few steps. I tried to keep away from her unbearable foul breath as she came towards me. In my fear I was ready to flee, but I had to ask her one thing. "How do you know all this?" However, with her mutterings, groanings, and gnashing of teeth, my fearful question was lost as a small stone disappearing in foaming waves. I remember only that she turned to me and in desperation she replied in an agitated voice, "You have no country here. Leave. Far away leave. Far away a great one is waiting for you, never abandon the chanting never never." And in this persistent never her words faded away as the voice of a drowning person in a storm. Her leering gaze was seeing other worlds. Her mouth became deformed. It was filled with foam and she was shaking all over. I was overcome. Her few words repeatedly were echoing in my ears. "You have no country here. Leave. Far away leave. Far away a great one is waiting for you, never abandon the chanting never never." My God, I was saying to myself, who told her to reveal to me these words? Help me, my God. I was so perturbed as I was returning to the camp, that I did not realize I had reached it. There, all the Christian prisoners were gathered. I walked skeptically and reached the bakery. My daily work began again. With pain in my soul I distributed the bread of slavery to my fellow men. Chapter 5 My Miraculous Escape. Since that day, the holy man continued, a strange passion was born inside me. I wanted to escape, to leave, to live free. But frightening misgivings loomed to discourage me in my determination to flee. How could I succeed with such a plan? First of all, I was located in a most dangerous situation in isolated and unfamiliar territory. Even if I did succeed to escape, where would I go? From the little geography I knew, I surmised that after Kurdistan I should reach the border of Syria, then Lebanon, and vaguely I pictured Palestine in the distance. My greatest difficulty, however, was something else. What about a passport? Somewhere along the way I would be arrested. Then what would I do? My thought was, I am a refugee and a prisoner now. I will still be a refugee and a prisoner after being arrested. I kept saying to myself, that it is better to be in any other hands except in the hands of the Turks. I will tell the truth. I will tell about my life, my pain, and my sufferings. God will enlighten those who will appear before me. I will tell them my destination. I will relate my desire and the promise of my life. God will disclose to them my innocence, and through God's intervention they will help me. God, only God. With mixed thoughts of fear, joy, and anticipation, I outlined in my mind a scheme for escape. With scrupulous care and every precaution I prepared a sack with a blanket, some bread, and some water. The rising of the sun would show me in which direction I should go. One night when I was certain that no one was awake, I made the sign of the cross, I prayed, and I slipped out into the darkness towards the exit of the camp. My escape was made with success. No one, not even my dearly beloved fellow prisoners, had the slightest notion of my plan. After my escape I began to prepare myself for the myriad unforeseen eventualities awaiting me. I realized I would have to pass through mountains and plains. I must hide whenever I see people. I must travel continuously night and day without stopping. Only when my fatigued and tortured body reached its limits, I would lie down, no matter where, in order to regain strength and then to continue on my way. The first hours were frightful indeed. I was running as a deer chased by hounds. I was afraid that maybe the infidel guards would discover my absence and order a search for me. All that night was an unforgettable and perilous venture. I seemed to hear voices, screams, mutterings, and all manner of sounds all around me. I was haunted by the thought that soldiers were trying to hunt me down in order to arrest and to persecute me. In my mind I could see my captors, after discovering my escape, lash into fury with vengeance. Then I saw myself on the run, fleeing panic-stricken, so as not to be captured and returned in chains to confinement and finally to be executed. The sunrise with its sweet smile of the day met me near the Syrian border. Joy lessened my fatigue. The fact that I was young was in my favor. I was 23 years old when I dared to risk an escape under the most hazardous conditions. I disregarded dangers, pains, and exhaustion. I had, in spite of the hardships, much strength and endurance. I was able to confront hunger and thirst, and I did not succumb to the rigors I had to endure. After I took the required measures and the necessary precautions, I entered Syria. I passed the border without anyone seeing me. I advanced quite a bit, always on pathways in the mountains. Suddenly I discovered that I was nearing an inhabited district. It was the city of Aleppo. For a while I sat to rest and to recover from the ordeals of my flight. From a vantage point on the mountainside, the town was spread down below before me. After regaining my strength I made my way towards the city, slowly waiting for the sun to set so as not to give myself away to curious eyes. I was walking steadily in the streets just as any other person. I showed neither fear nor curiosity. I ate a little bread and I filled my small container with water from the first fountain I found. I began to orientate myself towards the exit of the city. Soon I was in the direction toward my goal, Jerusalem. I climbed mountains, following paths, wherever they were. I waded through rivers. My journey continued day and night without pause. My steps hastened in anticipation of my destiny. There was no fear in me and no loss of courage to deter my efforts. I never felt loneliness. An invisible companion seemed to be guiding me. Never in my life had I ever imagined to find myself in such strange and dire difficulties. Finally I made it safely past fierce-looking border sentinels. I hurried on and before me appeared a great magnificent building. For a few minutes I looked at it with apprehension until I realized that it was a hospital. Now I felt safe because I was in no danger to be queried. This gave me a sense of security. Taking advantage of the quietness and the isolation, I sat to rest. My feet felt heavy and it was with great difficulty that I could move them. Taking out my one and only blanket, I spread it on the ground. Tired as I was from the long trek, I fell asleep for I don't know how long. The only thing I couldn't forget was my indescribable fatigue and exhaustion. But my plan always remained the same and my destination unchanged. At last I woke up from a terribly heavy sleep which had rested me tremendously. I went through the city and reached its bustling port. What did I notice? People all about, ships at the docks, movement, sounds. I saw the Greek flag on some of the ships and I heard the Greek language. Greece had sent ships to Beirut to pick up her persecuted citizens who had miraculously escaped from the genocide in Turkey. Our mother country was transporting them to their free homeland for survival and safety. Faintly I heard inside me a beckoning voice saying to me, "There's an opportunity. Don't miss it. Go to Greece now that you have the chance. No passport is required. What do you need of the Holy Land? The promise you've made, forget it. Here is a turning point in your life." I fought much with this temptation, to persist in my plans or to go to Greece. To fulfill my destiny, to keep my vow, or to forget my promise to God? No, no, I repeated. I will continue my journey and I will consider neither the toil nor the difficulties. So I was on my way again, this time with apathy and indifference to my movements. I begged for whatever was necessary to appease my hunger. Somehow I again oriented myself to proceed in the right direction toward the Holy Land. I persisted in my efforts and I gave encouragement to myself with every thought about my goal. My greatest concern was the fact that I had no passport. No one, however, had asked me for any document up to this time. An invisible hand was protecting me constantly. I continued my journey the whole day and the whole night. Before dawn, there before me lay Sidon, which was near the end of my destination. I had reached this coastal city after a difficult wayfaring of many days. I encountered mountains, plains, rivers, forests, and caves. I would lie down wherever I found shelter, in order to rest and to regain strength. After going through Sidon, I reached the next large city, Tyre, also on the coast. As I approached it, the life of Christ on earth came to my mind, the places my Lord visited with his disciples. In Sidon and Tyre, idolatry had signed. In the region of these two cities, there was a Canaanite woman, an idolatress. She went to the compassionate teacher and asked him with tears to heal her daughter who was possessed. After a brief conversation, the Lord discovered the trust of that woman, when he told her, "O woman, great is your faith. Be it done as you desire." Chapter 6: The Unexpected Meeting. The memory of this beautiful evangelical account seemed to dissipate my fatigue because I felt revived and strengthened to proceed. After a quick prayer I said to myself, only a little hardship and then, the end. Only a little courage, and then the fulfillment of my promise. I continued to wend my way and soon entered Tyre, where again, with some begging, I obtained some food. After a little rest, I traveled on, always taking precautions, so as not to be detected and delayed. A short distance from the city, where there was a steep uphill, I climbed the mountains again because it was necessary to avoid roads and populated areas. My toil and my fatigue seemed to vanish as I chanted and prayed with every step. If I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Suddenly at the turn of the path, unexpectedly I met a villager. There was no time to hide. It was not easy either to retreat or to avoid the meeting. An invisible hand brought me face to face with the stranger. My meeting with him was so sudden that without realizing it I stopped cold. I looked at him in the eyes with the expression of fear on my face. Inside me I felt the urge to flee, to turn back and to run, no matter in which direction. Something, however, held me and made me not to try anything to avoid this man. He noticed my difficulty. He stopped and looked at me without saying anything. We both stood there, the one waiting for the other to see who would open his mouth first. I wanted to speak, but what could I say? In what language should I address even a greeting? If he asked me questions, how would I answer? For me, it was one of the most difficult moments since my escape. After I came to myself, I greeted him in the Turkish language. In the meantime, I tried to maintain some composure. While I was still perplexed about how I should react, I heard the villager greet me in Turkish also. Fear conquered me, but at the same time, joy. With a confused feeling of relief, I fell at his feet. I began to kiss them and to plead. "Please, don't give me away, don't betray me," I was telling him over and over. "Who are you?" the villager asked. "I am a refugee from Turkey. The Turks massacred my parents, my brothers, and all my relatives. I was the only one to be spared. I was arrested with many others and we were held prisoners to be executed. Miraculously I escaped from the camp to save myself. I want to reach the Holy Land, Jerusalem. That is my destination." When the villager heard my plea and learned of the hardships of my life, he began to cry. With a choking, sobbing voice he told me of his own life. "I am an Armenian. I lived like you and witnessed the most brutal slaughter the civilized world has ever known. I saw with my own eyes ferocity and its fullest madness. I too have suffered the persecutions of the Turks. Whatever you describe to me, I know. Don't be afraid. I will help you in whatever way I can." It is impossible to describe my happiness after this confession and the conversation with the villager. The exhaustion of so many days had vanished. I had the opportunity to converse in the language I knew. The most gracious Lord guided me to meet this kind person. All of the doubts and the questions I had would be answered. I would now learn clearly and with certainty in what direction I should go, what dangers might appear, and how far was the distance that separated me from my goal. I told my Armenian friend about my dream and my plans. He told me clearly, "If you had not met me, you definitely would have come across border guards. Your end would have been tragic because these sentinels are ready to shoot on sight without interrogations or investigations. Anything suspicious comes under immediate attack." I looked upwards to heaven and thanked God. "Lord, you guided my steps up to now. Please be with me until the end. I beg for your protection. Please defend and direct me." The old Armenian villager then raised his hand and pointed toward a very high mountain and said, "You will climb there, my son. Then you will go down to the other side to reach Elma. It is a village where Latins and Kurds live. Try not to meet with police. God be with you." I thanked him. I looked at the distant steep high mountain and I began to move on. Many hours passed. Hours of walking in order to reach and to climb the mountain. He advised me how to avoid the border guards. At the foot of the mountain was an endless plain, and at one point I distinguished the village of Elma. I definitely had to go through it in order to reach the city of Akris near Haifa. I walked for 3 days and nights. The ascent and descent of the mountains completely ruined my shoes. Without any protection I was stepping on thorns, sharp stones, and splintery wood. However, nothing prevented Ro from running. My much abused feet had such toughness that I thought I was flying instead of walking. The toils and the hardships suddenly vanished as I was thinking that I was nearing my objective. In the beautiful city of Akris there was a Greek community. The Armenian villager had assured me of this when met him. My stay there was going to offer a pleasing change. I would find people with whom to speak and to relate my problems. This would restore my strength and courage. With these thoughts, every difficulty of my life seemed to disappear. After the hardship and the uninterrupted journey of 3 days and nights I reached Akris. I was certain it was that city, since I heard from afar the toll of a church bell. My eyes filled with tears. Chapter 7 The police patrol on my way. I had not yet recovered from my excitement, when I saw across the deserted street a police patrol. Neither man nor beast was in sight. The difficulty in which I found myself was great. My blood froze. My knees began to buckle. I was caught up in perplexity and I did not know what to do. Without giving heed to a gnawing fear, I took courage. I felt again an invisible hand giving me strength. I came to and regained my composure. With a natural movement I backed off a little and whispered a hasty prayer, "Protect me, my Lord, protect me in this critical situation." My pace was steady and quiet, and my movement natural. The bag I had on my shoulder and the staff I held made it seem as if I were a shepherd. I didn't make any suspicious movements. In this way I walked on and passed the patrol. Danger was out of the way before I realized it. The change of my course guided me to another village very small with few houses. It was on the outskirts of Akris. I didn't want to go through the village. I saw a deserted place and headed towards it. On the way there was a cave which obviously had been used by shepherds. I stayed for the night. Every movement ceased and nothing was heard to indicate the presence of man or animal. My fatigue was so great that it took a while for me to fall asleep. I don't know for how long I slept, but when I opened my eyes, it was dawn, with the welcome sun rising. My original plans were postponed. Since I was not about to visit Acris, my target now was Haifa. I must have journeyed for about 3 hours through mountains with steep slopes, following worn pathways and narrow trails. With difficulty, I made it through the rough terrain. In the distance there was the city of Haifa. Finally I was in Palestine. Chapter 8. The first Greek letters. At this point, Father Mitrophanus gave a deep sigh. His voice choked. Tears ran from his eyes and rolled down to 2 bony and pale cheeks. Without realizing it, those of us who listened in suspense and who were caught up in his sentiments, became at that moment participants in his offerings. His emotions became ours, and his tears filled our own eyes. A pain tightened our hearts, and full of anticipation to hear more, we asked him to continue. My joy, Father Mitrophanus continued, was immense. My gratitude to God was great. For what he gave, I would sacrifice myself for his love. I must fulfill my promise, to serve him with all my strength. With God's help all had gone well and the light of my dreams had dawned. A few more days, I kept repeating, a few more days and I will reach the place for which I had longed. And repeating these words I hastened to reach the city. I felt welcomed by the sight of the first houses. The sea, with its calm waves, softly and quietly announced the triumphant words of my arrival. Everything seemed to be smiling at me. If only it was known that I was one who narrowly escaped execution just a few months ago. As an animal about to be trapped, I fled in order to escape from bloodthirsty infidels. I knew with great faith that I would find someone on my way who would speak Greek with me. As I hurried on, memories, thoughts, and dreams darted through my mind. All of a sudden, there in the city of Haifa, before me appeared a beautiful and impressive structure. With its fine and distinctive architecture it seemed to be one with earth, sea, and sky. The closer I went to that building the more I admired it. In a little while I saw a marble sign with gold letters. From afar I could see that the sign was depicted in 3 languages, Greek, Arabic, and English: Hotel Jerusalem, the Holy Sepulchre. Only the name Holy Sepulchre was enough to shake me. A cold sweat chilled my whole body. Tears flowed from my eyes and wet my tired face. I became dizzy and my eyesight darkened. I couldn't see anything and I passed out. I don't know for how long I was in a faint. When I came to, I got up and again I saw the Greek letters of the sign. After I was certain that they were real and not a figment of my imagination, I began bowing and kneeling. I must have done this about 40 times and then I got up. I took a few steps forward in order to find the entrance to the hotel. Then I heard a conversation in Greek. Greek words, Greek language, a dream or a reality? My joy was so great that hardships, sufferings and fatigue were erased from my mind. Where was my weariness? Where were my bloody feet? Where were my hunger and thirst? What about fear and sleepless nights? All melted away. I took a few steps. The torn and faded clothes of my incarceration, my shredded shoes, my sore feet, all proved the traces of my wretchedness. The first man I met I greeted him in Greek. These first words in my own language sounded like a sweetly ringing bell in my ears. "Where do you come from, young man?" the gentleman asked me. "From very far," I answered, and my eyes filled with tears. This person was the manager of the hotel. He welcomed me and I had no idea of his important position. "Tell me, where do you come from?" he inquired again in a serious and imposing tone. "From Turkey," I answered, "from the bloodshed of Asia Minor, where I was captured by the Turks and thrown into prison. I was to be executed, but I made a desperate escape. After arduous and formidable wanderings I have reached this place where I hear the first Greek words. For a month I traveled on foot and I want to continue so that I can reach the Holy Land. I made a great promise and must fulfill it." My new friend was moved. However, as the minutes of our conversation went by, my presence became known. In a few moments I was no longer a stranger to the gentleman. Other Greeks, assistants and clerks of the hotel began to approach. Their interest became greater in a little while. I found myself surrounded by a number of people who were asking to learn something with certainty from the mouth of someone who suffered and survived disastrous events in Asia Minor. News of the savagery toward the Greek population in Turkey was not only slow in reaching them, but also often distorted. No one knew exactly about the tragedy of the condition or about the cruelty of the persecutions, nor about the carnage of innocent women and children, and generally of all of the Greek people who were totally helpless without weapons or allies. The martyrdom of early Christianity and that of this century are known only to a few. The news of these tragedies are kept in the background for political reasons. The persecutions, the fear, and the terrors endured by the Orthodox in the 20th century, not only equaled, but surpassed those as inflicted during the rule of the Ottoman Empire from 1453 to 1821. It was the 28th of October 1923, Father Mitrophanes continued, an unforgettable date, the day of my arrival in the first place of freedom. All of my countrymen began to surround me with much love and affection. They brought me new clothes to wear, and new shoes to put on my aching feet. I had a hot bath which cleansed and revived me. My newfound friends set a bounteous table before me with deliciously cooked food, and finally I was given an immaculate bed to lay my tortured and ailing body to recover. An ocean of love. After so many years, how could I ever forget such overwhelming kind treatment? Father Mitrophanes looked up and said, "In my prayers that night I asked God to reward with a special place in His heavenly kingdom those most gracious people who provided me with such loving care." After a pause, he continued, "At sundown the bells of the church of Prophet Elias began to ring for Vespers. This church and the hotel, both belong to the jurisdiction of the Brotherhood of the Holy Sepulchre, whose mission was to serve the Greek community in spiritual and worshipping aspects well as for various other needs." Soon the congregation of Orthodox Christians had arrived and the Vesper service began. I timidly approached the cantor's stand and I began to chant in a low voice. When the cantor heard me, he asked me to continue. I thanked him and did his bidding, taking turns with him. After the service people came to meet me and to inquire of my perils. Even Bishop Kelatian asked to see me. The bishop was an ascetic figure, highly gifted in discerning the hearts of those near him. He invariably judged rightly any person he saw. He was not mistaken about my presence. He immediately surmised the religious zeal, which I had in spite of my young age. He wanted to talk with me of the things he had heard. I, afraid and full of respect for the clergy, when heard that the bishop asked to see me, I began to be reluctant. Many different thoughts passed through my mind. How would I face the bishop? I was asking myself. What does the bishop want of me? Maybe God enlightened him, and he wants to help me to realize an burning desire to serve in the Holy Land. Full of agony and embarrassment, I went with custodian. It was my first time in a bishop's office. The door of the great, imposing and beautiful reception room opened. On the walls in ornate frames were portraits of the patriarchs who had served in the past. Behind the bishop's desk were icons of the Lord and of the Most Holy Virgin Mary Theotokos. The floor was covered with modest rugs. The chairs around the room with their Byzantine carvings were all symmetrically placed in the great hall. The atmosphere of the room created in the visitor a sense of awe and reverence. The bishop beckoned me. "Come, my son. Who are you? Beautiful and melodious is your voice, charming as that of the nightingale that praises God in hymns during the quiet spring night. I have learned that you are a refugee, who suffered many hardships, and I was moved as I heard of your ordeals. I ask that you stay with me. My paternal affection and unlimited love will surround you always. You will be at my right hand." At that moment, I did not know what to think of these unexpected words. I took a few steps forward, and as I approached him, I lowered my head to the floor in adoration, and upon arising I kissed his hand. "My son, such humility is not necessary," I answered him. "This is not something of the moment. From childhood I was taught by my pious parents to show respect to bishops and priests of our Holy Church." The bishop remained silent as he listened. I could see that he was thinking of something in a profound way. He raised his eyes, looked at me, and said, "My son, I appreciate your character and I take into consideration the things your parents have instilled in your soul. I want you to stay with me. You will live comfortable here. You will chant and you will serve God, whom you have loved. I thought my ears were deceiving me. It was unbelievable what I was hearing. Here I am, an illiterate young man, with no higher education, and with no special abilities. What does this bishop want of me that he promises me so much? Instinctively I opened my mouth and with the proper respect I said to him, Your Grace, I thank you and I am moved by your paternal interest in your love. I, however, have to fulfill the promise. See my life. The promise is one, to reach the Holy Land. Have gone through fire and the sword, through danger and unimaginable sufferings, hungry and thirsty. I had gone without sleep and I have walked endlessly. The Lord gave me strength and courage for my survive. It is a wondrous marvel how God brought me here. Psalms express for me the trials I endured. Now how can I not fulfill my promise? Whatever I asked of God He denied me nothing. How can I renege on the promise I have made in His holy name? I thank you, but my decision remains constant and firm. I want to fulfill my objective even if it's my last moment on earth. Before this steadfastness of my character and the finality of my resolve, the bishop, full of emotion, did not want to pressure me any further. Our meeting, ever for only few minutes, gave him the opportunity to see many things. Immediately he understood my intent, and quickly he reached his conclusions. He looked at me in his fatherly manner and told me, My son, I admire the determination in your noble decision. I appreciate your principles. I do not want to become an obstacle in your aim. Whether you serve Christ here, or in His holy places, the exact same service you will offer to the Patriarchate. I will help you to reach your final intent. Chapter 9, Jerusalem. The City of God. With these words the bishop ended the matter of his proposition. He withdrew his attempt to persuade me to remain in Haifa at the Medocean. After our conversation, preparations for my departure remained. It was November 1st, of the year 1923, the day that was the beginning of the rest of my life, a life blessed with the richness of the grace of God. My train journey to the Holy City was uneventful but pleasant, as I basked in anticipation of my new existence. Finally, in a few hours guide and I reached Jerusalem, the holiest of cities. Truly, how can I relate the impressions of that first day? My thoughts and aspirations at last turned into an incredible reality. Now every biblical passage of the life of Christ would come more alive in my mind and more intensely for me. It was astounding to think that my dreams and desires were nearing actualization. My heart was overflowing with joy in the knowledge that my promise could be fulfilled. We entered the walled part of the city at the gate of David, near where once stood the royal palace of David. An Arab-speaking Orthodox priest was there waiting to welcome us. The narrow streets accommodated pedestrians only. In order to get about, one was obliged to walk the countless uphill and downhill stone streets to reach the Patriarchate. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon when the bell of the Holy Church of the Resurrection began to ring and to be heard all over the city. Just as a tape grasps sound and preserves it for many years, in the same way I can still hear these joyful bells pealing with their sacred and imposing toll. Every time I hear them, I am reminded of my first days in Jerusalem. Chapter 10, My First Pilgrimage. Father Mitrophanes paused for a few moments and lowered his head. He brought his crossed hands that were resting on his chest up, and with them he covered his eyes. He remained thus for a while and then he continued. After the sounding of the bells, I saw movement on behalf of the whole personnel of the Patriarchate. There were staff bearers with special uniform and minister. Following were novices in their monastic black robes and caps. Then when the bells rang again, 18 bishops and priests began to come down towards the entrance of the Church of the Resurrection. Jerusalem and the Church of the Resurrection. I was speechless at the sight. With reverence and admiration I followed what seemed to be heavenly orders of angels and archangels lined up in order to glorify God. The whole priestly order formed an angelic procession here on earth for the Vesper service. Before I could realize it, I too found myself inside the Holy Church of the Resurrection. Impatiently, I was searching with my eyes right and left to find where the tomb of Christ was. Nearby stood a venerable monk, Father Artemius. Father, I asked, where is the tomb of Christ? Here, my son, he answered. And with his right hand he pointed to a very small, but high chapel-like structure, built with magnificence and grandeur. At the entrance of the chapel I saw that people reverently were going in to worship. Above the entrance of the Holy Sepulchre were sacred lamps lighted and burning with pure olive oil. I counted them. There were 34 vigil lamps. When Father Artemius saw me looking at them, he explained to me, "Here, my son, are people of different languages and nationalities with their own interpretations of Christianity. All have rights here and all are struggling to take from the Orthodox their authority over the holy shrines. Of the golden lighted lamps, 14 belong to the Orthodox, 13 belong to the Armenians and 7 to the Latins, meaning Roman Catholics." Father Artemius then motioned for me to move on. I approached with great awe. My knees were trembling. I bent over and went inside the first sanctum of the Holy Sepulchre. There before me on top of a small table-like marble column was a piece of stone in a glass case. I asked a monk who was standing there if he would kindly tell me what it was. He answered, "Here is part of the stone slab that the angel rolled from the tomb. Only the portion was saved. The rest of it, piece by piece, was taken by kings and princes, rulers and simple folk. This small part remained and was preserved through the ages as a holy relic. Now it is used as an altar during the Divine Liturgy." I raised my eyes to examine closely the sacred surroundings. I saw more golden, lighted vigil lamps hanging, lined up one next to the other. As I stood there looking at them, the monk continued, "Do you see these lamps in here? 5 belong to the Orthodox, which we have to light them every day. The other 5 belong to the Latins. The 4 belong to the Armenians and the one that hangs alone belongs to the Copts of Egypt." After pausing in the first part of the chapel, I proceeded in wonderment to enter the inner sanctum where the tomb was. Here the second entrance was very small compared to the first. The height of the doorway being lower, made it impossible to enter in an upright position. Therefore a person had to bend forward to gain entrance. Momentarily my eye caught an inscription over the lintel which read, "Why do you seek the living among the dead? He has risen." These were the words of the angel who addressed the myrrh-bearing women on Easter morning. I felt that the same angel appeared before me, that he showed me the place where the disciples had buried Christ. I proceeded with bowed head, facing the hallowed tomb. Trembling I fell on my knees and went near to worship. I could not hold back the tears falling on the tomb of Christ. "This," I said, "is the end of a long and agonizing journey." Here I was, not in imagination, but in reality. I knelt for a long time while tears of my gratitude flowed freely to thank Him who brought me here. The Crucifixion. After my veneration with head bowed, I backed out and less than took leave with overwhelming awe. When I came out of the tomb of Christ, I found Father Artemius waiting for me. At that moment my keen desire was to visit Golgotha where Christ was crucified. It was time for the Vesper service in the most sacred church of the Resurrection. Crowds of people had gathered to attend. Father Artemius was watching me, and seeing my impatience, he took me by the hand to where Calvary was. Immediately I found myself before a climb of very high steep steps. Without difficulty I ascended. When I reached the top, there before me was depicted the crucified Christ. As I was watching his holy face falling to the right, my eyes fell on the grieved face of his most holy mother and that of Street John. What I beheld, so stirred the core of my heart and soul that again my eyes filled with tears. I felt so moved that I thought I was going to faint. It seemed beyond belief that I was actually here at the place of the sacrifice of the Lamb and Son of God. Here I tasted the sorrow and pain of the most holy Theotokos and the beloved disciple. Here I was experiencing the divine sacrifice for the salvation of humanity. When I recovered from the overpowering emotions which had welled up in me, I went near to kneel and to pray. A fragrance seemed to emanate from the cross. One has to be extremely sensitive to the divinity of the place to detect the sweet and delicate scent which is a sign of the glory of God. Here, the pilgrim at this awesome scene of Calvary, is transported to a heavenly world. Having expressed my earnest devotions, I humbly lowered volumes of gratitude to Him who was crucified for my salvation. I took leave with reverence and deepest humility. The Vesper service had just begun and I could hear the first hymn as it was being chanted. I approached the cantor's stand and I began to accompany in a so voice. I cannot forget with how much feeling I was chanting this first evening, the hymns of our church. Lord, I have cried unto thee. The vesper of that day still dwells in my soul, and I often relive it in my mind. When everyone left, I remained almost alone to enjoy the beauty and the holiness of everything inside the church. As I turned to leave, a saintly old ascetic approached me. It was a fragile figure, an almost skeleton-like body hidden inside his monk's robe. His presence evoked deep respect. I remember him as a shadow rather than as a person. It was Father Gerasimos, the sacristan of the Holy Sepulchre. He guarded whatever was holy and sacred as preserved today by the Patriarchate of Jerusalem, from various holy vestments, to the Byzantine sacred vessels. The position and the office of the sacristan of the Holy Sepulchre is very significant and requires a great sense of responsibility for the safekeeping of all the relics. Father Gerasimos began to converse with me. He asked where I came from and what I planned to do. Briefly, I told him of my origin and my life story. I then revealed to him my dream and my longing. I told him about the promise I had made to serve the Holy Sepulchre, to be one of the guards. When our conversation ended, I made 3 prostrates to the holy man. I kissed his hand and added, "Holy Father, I want to ask of you a favor. Would you please hear confession from me?" Father Gerasimos agreed with much kindness, and on that same day I had my first confession in the Holy Land. From then on, I felt inside me a sense of peace and security because I had a spiritual father, a heavenly gift, God's blessing. Father Gerasimos encompassed me with much love and affection. The sacrament of confession created in my life a great and holy spiritual bond. After my penance, Father Gerasimos asked me, "Do you want to remain with me, my son?" "With all my heart, Holy Father," I answered, "to serve wherever you order me, anywhere in the Holy Land." It was for the love of Christ that I traveled many miles through innumerable adversities. When Father Gerasimos heard my plea, he accepted my and made me a novice. I obeyed him and I carried out all of his orders. An unimaginable inner calmness took over my being and I felt a deep joy. I can never remember embittering my spiritual father. I practiced great obedience and executed every task that he put to me for my spiritual progress. 6 months passed since that day. I didn't know what was outside the Church of the Resurrection, if there was even a city, because I never tried to visit it and to know it. No other thought occupied me about what the rest of Jerusalem was like. I was never curious to explore the environs. Only one thing occupied me, my obedience to my Geranda. My concern turned entirely to the vigil services, to fasting and to prayers. Only these took possession of me. Only to these, my concerns lay. Finally, the chanting to God was the quintessence of my spiritual life. Chapter 11. My assignment. Father Mitrophanes continued, all this time I followed rigorous trial period. One day I was notified to go to the Patriarchate. I was told that something special would be announced to me. My whole life and conduct had been made known to the Patriarch Damianos I. Why did he want to see me? Questions arose in my mind and I wondered what Father had in store for me. Did he want to have me discharged? Had I done anything wrong and I was not aware of it? Did he want to announce something in my favor or something against me? With these thoughts I prepared myself for the worst. With an escort, we made our way to the Patriarchate. I was led to the Holy Patriarch who was sitting at his desk. "My son," he said when he saw me, "your conduct in the Patriarchate, your obedience, and your whole life became known to me. From today I assign you as guard of the Holy Sepulchre. You must perform your duties with zeal and devotion. You must serve the Holy Sepulchre with faith and self-denial, and may the omniscient Lord reward you in his heavenly kingdom. With the blessing of God and my prayers you will advance in virtue. May God be with you, my son." After making my prostrates, I kissed the hand of the Holy Father, thanked him with evident emotion, and departed. I could not stop the tears from taking hold of me. At long last my dream would be fulfilled. Who would ever believe that I, with a minimum of education and with limited skills and abilities, one day would be honored with such a holy duty? How did the Patriarch ever decide to choose me? Only God knows. I had made my promise and today he deemed me worthy to realize it. I thank you, my Lord, I thank you. Wonder and joy had flooded my being and I kept saying, I, a guard of the tomb of Christ. What an astounding thought to be there in such a role. The position is enviable and many dream of it. But only those who are called from God become worthy of it. I myself felt unworthy and attributed the whole matter to a miracle. The history of this duty has its roots from the time that Christ was buried and guards were placed on watch lest his disciples come by night and steal him away and say unto the people, He is risen from the dead. Only those of the Orthodox faith are allowed the privilege of this noble and exalted calling. Therefore non-Orthodox are not among those who guard the tomb of Christ. And Father Mitraphanes continued to tell us, from that day on when the greatest honored duty was given to me, I thanked God each hour and tried in every way, with every sacrifice to be consistent in my responsibilities. As guard of the tomb of Christ I had to be alert for any irreverence or unexpected desecration. Multitudes of faithful as well as non-Orthodox Christians from all parts of the world came as pilgrims to the sacred tomb. They came, and without anyone urging them, or suggesting to them, or compelling them, they fell on their knees to venerate. They would light one or more candles, to express their devotion and their love to the resurrected Christ and Savior. Millions of candles are lit during the year. No other shrine on earth attracts so many pilgrims. It is an endless veneration of the life-giving tomb, Golgotha, and the manger of the birth of Christ. The faithful ask themselves, what attracts such a multitude of people where everyone kneels and worships at an empty tomb? Great are you, O Lord, and marvelous are your works, Father Mitraphanes said, and made the sign of the cross. His experience allowed him to see many things and to become a witness of signs, tears, and prayers of so many faithful. He continued, the guard of the tomb is also responsible for the ceremony of the holy light which is passed out to the people, as a divine and heavenly blessing every year on Holy Saturday. This blessing is also enjoyed by non-Orthodox, as well, who accept the authenticity of the faith. There are those who out of ignorance or disbelief deny the genuineness of orthodoxy. As a result there are now thousands of schisms and heresies all over the world. Chapter 12 My new Geranda. Since the day of my appointment I was assigned to another spiritual father, Father Achileos, an old ascetic and guard of the sepulchre who would be responsible for me as my Geranda. I obeyed his every command. He was strict and he would not compromise with anything that was against his conscience and his duty. He kept at abeyance contradictions and did not welcome doubters with their idle questioning. When he gave an order, he wanted it to be carried out with obedience and humility, the two distinguishing characteristics of a devout monk. I began, therefore, in silence and obscurity to execute whatever he asked of me. I refrained from being conspicuous and wanted my services to be performed as secretly and as humbly as possible. Being dedicated to God, I practiced submission and self-abasement. They became as second nature to me. Very soon I was robed in the ceremony of the monastic ordination. The solemn induction impressed upon me the gravity of my new role and of my mission and duties. During then rites, the Patriarch Damianos I renamed me from Miltiades to the servant of God, Mitraphanes, and I was shorn. Now I was the namesake of an outstanding figure of the Ecumenical Patriarchate of Constantinople in the service of Christ. For a moment, Father Mitraphanes showed that he wanted to end his story. He was afraid that he may have tired his listeners, but we were eagerly awaiting to hear more and to follow his life story. Most importantly, we wanted him to tell us how he was able to get a glimpse of the holy light. He resumed his narration and all of us again became his audience, who with faith and confidence took in his every word. In ardent anticipation, we wanted to learn of the miracle of the holy light which occurs every Holy Saturday. The phenomenon of a divine light appearing within the confines of the sacrosanct sepulchre filled our minds with wonder and amazement and perhaps with a tinge of dubiousness. How could this light burst forth without human intervention? Could it be an illusion, or was fraudulence present? Could there be secrets known only to a few people? Could it be that we outsiders are duped? All these and many more questions tossed about in our misgivings. Through the centuries people of all faiths sought explanations for the mystical by asking for answers responsible, authentic, and real. For us, it was a great opportunity. We were seeking to learn, because Father Mitraphanes had won our trust. For 57 whole years he was the guard of the Holy Sepulchre. We could not let such an opportunity escape us. We asked him to continue to tell whatever he knew, whatever he saw. Chapter 13 The Holy Light, the continuing miracle of the centuries. Father Mitrofanous saw our desire and our persistence. He was touched by our fervent interest. He saw with how much attention we listened. As he debated whether to continue or to stop, all of a sudden divine grace invisible visited him and his face shone. His clear eyes changed to sparkling mirrors. He looked at us with much affection and continued. The holy light, he told us, is not defined. No one can localize or contain it. It is unlimited and interminable. In the past, as much as I can remember, many have written about the holy light. Chrysostom Papadopoulos mentions it in his book The History of the Church of Jerusalem. Also, on the same subject, T.P. Thiemles wrote under the title The Ceremony of the Holy Light on the 100th anniversary of the Most Sacred Church of the Resurrection. If my memory serves me well, Adamantios Kouris wrote the book Dialogue about the Holy Light in Jerusalem. Great and praiseworthy was the letter of Nikephoros Theotokos to Mihailo Larison, who asked about the Holy Light. In the Code of 1457 there is an important, but unpublished dissertation about the sepulchre light by Neophytos Kofsokolovitis. Many other similar works were written at times, which I cannot recall now. We truly marveled at his memory and knowledge about the holy light, but he interrupted our admiration when he told us, I am sorry that I cannot discuss with you either the historical or scientific aspects of the holy light. I will tell you what my experience has taught me for so many years. I will describe to you in detail whatever I was able to see with my own eyes. My faith in God was and is infinite. He raised me to the heights of divine grace. He filled a tremendous empty space in my heart which was full of doubts, thoughts, and questions about the light. How many people, even today, feel an emptiness in their being which torments them? Mysteriously somehow I was made worthy and gained a glimpse of the holy light. Then the tremendous void which weighed on me vanished. There was not a trace of doubt to prey on my mind. The grace of the holy light allowed me to witness an event which rarely a person is able to experience at first hand. In 1925, when I undertook to serve as a guard of the tomb of Christ, I was obsessed with the question, what is the holy light? At that time, Easter was nearing. Until then, in all of the past years, I remained afar from the Holy Sepulchre. I was an observer, just as other people were. I was a pilgrim among thousands of pilgrims. But now, things had changed radically. I was no longer an apathetic but faithful spectator. I was responsible for whatever would take place according to the order and the service of the Holy Light. Father Anatolios, my austere spiritual father, would not accept any disobedience to his orders, nor allow any hesitations and doubts to loom. When finally Holy Week of the Passion of the Lord was approaching, he told me in his strict tone of voice, listen and pay attention as to what you must prepare on the morning of Holy Saturday. At 9 o'clock you will take 5 kilos of pure beeswax which has been blessed beforehand for 40 days during the daily divine liturgies. It is intended only for the service of the holy light. You will heat the wax in a special utensil, which is set apart for this purpose. The softened wax will be used to seal the entrance of the tomb until the time for the patriarch to enter. At 10 o'clock you will hear a rhythmical tapping. Special selected guards, in impressive traditional uniforms, with their long wooden staffs, clear the way through throngs of people. In such a manner the procession with the patriarch and a retinue of holy clergy proceed toward the Church of the Resurrection. Everyone stands in awe before the beauty and splendor of the ceremonial march into the house of God. The Orthodox faith finds it befitting to honor our Lord Jesus Christ with the finest in beauty and resplendence. For a moment Father Anatolios paused and then remarked, Father Mitrofanous, I see that you are carried away with what I am telling you. It is time to stop. Later you will hear more, but for now you must assure me that you are ready to undertake the whole responsibility within the Holy Sepulchre. It is the first time after so many years that I will not take part to serve in this ceremony. You will bring to completion your mission with utmost care and attention. Contrary to this, if you fail, you, as much as I who have entrusted this service to you, must leave the Patriarchate. Be very careful, Father Mitrofanous. I reassured him that I was paying attention precisely to the letter and to each detail. After he was convinced of the truth of my words, he continued, the Patriarch then will enter the Holy Church of the Resurrection. Following him will be the leaders of other dogmas, the Armenians, the Latins, the Abyssinians, the Copts, and the Syrians who will go to the patriarchal throne, all in line, one after the other, to kiss the hand of the patriarch. By following this established order, they then have the right to receive the holy light from the hand of the patriarch. This significant event is an official recognition that only Orthodoxy possesses the truth and the apostolic tradition in its entirety. The Armenians at one time wanted to obtain the right to be the only ones to enter the sanctuary of the sepulchre for the holy light ceremony. When I heard this shocking fact, I asked with much distress, "Holy Father, how could they want to displace the Orthodox from this time-honored position as successors to Christ and his apostles?" He replied thus, "No, here is what happened. When in the year of 1517 A.D., the Arabs occupied Jerusalem, the Armenians took advantage of their presence. They approached the Muslim governor and with a gift of gold, asked to be allowed the privilege to receive the holy light. This they asked and this they succeeded. They also implored to him that the Orthodox be forbidden entrance to the holy sepulchre for the sacred ritual. Up to this time such orders were unheard of and unprecedented. The unexpected deviations resulted in unimaginable sadness and distress for the Orthodox faithful. Holy Saturday dawned and the Most Holy Church of the Resurrection was closed to all of the Orthodox. Even the Patriarch and the clergy were not allowed to enter. With them gathered a host of Orthodox pilgrims from all parts of the world. On that day there was much lamentation and wailing. All of the faithful with tears were praying to God, to forestall this unheard of injustice. They were saddened by the unexpected action of the Armenians against the Orthodox. Precisely above the compound of the Church of the Resurrection, the Muslim emir was sitting at the pinnacle of a minaret. He selected such a place in order to see every movement. He was overcome by the agonizing question, what is going to happen now? For this reason he was following every movement with undivided attention. The Patriarch was kneeling at the entrance of the Most Holy Church. He was holding in his hand the bundle of the 33 candles and was praying. Tears streamed down his face as he pleaded to God. Lord, you who abhors injustice, heed the prayers of your children. Grant that your glory may appear thought your miracle and do not deprive your holy light from your faithful people. Father Achileos was observing me and he said, I am certain that you have seen the column at the left-hand side of the doorway to the church. Surely you have noticed that there is a blackened vertical split in a portion of the column. It has been that way for a little more than 400 years. I observed this detail, my father, I said, and even something more. Full of perplexity I bent over to examine it closely and I discovered a delicate fragrance coming from this stone column, the same fragrance that continually comes from Golgotha, where the cross had been. On that fateful Holy Saturday in 1517, the divine light did not visit the Holy Sepulchre where the Armenians were in charge and waiting. Instead, before the amazed eyes of clergy and pilgrims, the holy light flashing brilliantly, struck the column with the sound of a forceful wind. Instantaneously the stone column was split and blackened near the bottom. The prayers of the Patriarch and his people were answered. Many who do not believe ask, does the holy light give off smoke and blackens wherever it touches? Don't forget that the holy light does not cease to have the same quality as a common flame and every flame has smoke. Then why is it called holy light? Because it comes from the holy tomb spontaneously without human intervention. It is given through the grace of the Holy Spirit, which appears as a brilliant light at first and then as a tongue of fire just as on the day of Pentecost to the disciples of Christ. Every year at the precise hour when this light is to appear in the holy tomb, a pure white cloud comes before the Patriarch. When an intense luminescent radiance appears he then lifts with piety and faith the candles he is holding. Suddenly wondrously and inconceivably they are ignited. Now can you imagine what took place in the courtyard of the church? All of the faithful, the clergy, the attendants, all burst out in loud ringing voices and doxologies. The bells of the church began to ring joyfully. The whole of nature, everything, all of heaven and earth, all were sending songs of glory and thanksgiving to the true God. It is practically impossible to describe the delight and happiness of that day. Then an act of self-sacrifice was made that has been historically recorded. The Muslim emir, who was following everything from the high minaret, was transformed into an enthusiastic witness of orthodoxy. As soon as he saw this miracle, he cried loudly, "Great is the faith of the Christians. I now believe in the resurrected Christ. I worship him as a true God. At the same time, with this acknowledgement and declaration, he jumped from the minaret to an empty space in the courtyard of the Holy Church. And behold the miracle. Nothing happened to him. He suffered no injury by his fall. The Muslims were embarrassed. As soon as they heard his confession and observed the courage of the emir, they rushed over, seized him, and beheaded him on the spot. They considered him a betrayer of the faith of Islam. Muhammad did not want traitors on his side. The Christians gathered with great love and care the body of the martyr who was baptized in his own blood. They buried him as a faithful son of orthodoxy and as a martyr of Christ. His holy remains are preserved and are kept in the holy monastery of the Most Holy Virgin Mary. And the Armenians, Gironda? What happened to them? The Armenians after this came out of the church and disappeared. A long time passed until they reappeared in the Holy Land. Never again did they attempt to displace the Orthodox from the Holy Sepulchre. Now, that you have heard something that you didn't know until now, listen and pay attention to what you must do in your role as servant of the tomb. You must bring your mission to a favorable end. After the liturgy in the Church of the Resurrection on Holy Saturday, the Patriarch blesses heads of other faiths. He then proceeds toward the entrance of the Holy Sepulchre. There all around are seated high-ranking government, civil, and military officials from the vicinity and from different parts of the world. From 10 o'clock in the morning of Holy Saturday until 11 o'clock, a rigorous search for any instrument or device for igniting is made inside the Holy Sepulchre. Above this most holy monument of orthodoxy hang 43 golden vigil lights which are lit day and night. 13 belong to the Orthodox, 13 belong to the Latins. 13 belong to the Armenians and 4 to me Coptic monophysites. All of these lights form a golden curtain. They are like torch-bearing heavenly orders suspended over the tomb of Christ. Inside the Holy Sepulchre, at the last hour, only authorized representatives of the Armenians, the Latins, and the Copts, together with the Orthodox, enter the tomb with the purpose to put out the 43 vigil lights. Precautions are taken so that at no time, either by error or intentionally, a vigil light remains lit or that anything suspect is present. After a complete and thorough search is made in the Holy Sepulchre, a second and a third search follow to make certain that neither a person nor anything forbidden exists inside the tomb. Only then do the inspectors come out. At that time, 11 o'clock, procedures for the sealing of the tomb are ready to begin. The blessed and softened beeswax now will be used to secure 2 pure white ribbons in the shape of an X over the door of the Holy Sepulchre. After the wax has been put on the 4 ends of the ribbons, then at the exact center where the ribbons cross, more wax will be deposited. The rest of it will be placed all around the door. Finally, every point is to be stamped by the official seal of the Patriarchate. These procedures remind us of the desperate efforts of the Hebrew leaders who wanted to seal the tomb of the leader of life. They made every effort to take all of the measures they could to guard the dead Christ. They went to the Roman ruler of Jerusalem, Pontius Pilate, in order to receive permission according to law. "Sir," the Pharisees said to Pilate, "we remember that the deceiver said, 'He will live again. After 3 days I will rise.' The Roman governor answered, 'You have your guards, go your way, make it as sure as you can.' So they went, and made the sepulchre secure, sealing with a stone, and setting a watch. After the sealing of the tomb, a magnificent and majestic procession takes place 3 times around the Holy Sepulchre. In the lead are the patriarchal banners, altar boys bearing candles, crosses, and emblems of 6 winged angels. The Patriarch follows with a host of priests in golden vestments. All around can be heard the chantings of the Byzantine hymns with their sacred tones. Pilgrims observing this solemn procession feel transported to heaven. Rather, heaven descends to earth, and each pilgrim, even briefly, becomes a citizen of the celestial kingdom. At the end of the 3rd time around, the Patriarch stands at the entrance of the holy and life-giving sepulchre. Before all of the officials and the pilgrims, the Patriarch is searched again by the vigilant attendants. Every suspicion that something capable of producing light inside the Holy Sepulchre must be eradicated. Then the Patriarch, arrayed with the holy stole and the archieratical chasuble, is ready to enter the Holy Sepulchre. Precisely at 12 o'clock noon of Holy Saturday, the ribbons of the entrance are cut and the door is unsealed and opened. "You will be mindful," Father Achileos told me, "to place carefully on the marble slab of the life-giving tomb the holy vigil lamp unlit with its special golden case. At this point a strange expression appeared on the calm face of Father Mitraphanes. The tone of his voice changed suddenly. He was reliving all that was discussed with his gerunda. And with gestures that expressed the disturbance of his soul, he told us. As soon as I heard vigil lamp, a great cloud of doubt arose in my mind. Vigil lamp. I said to myself. What is a vigil lamp doing in the holy tomb, since the holy light is coming down from heaven? The hesitation and the internal battle of doubt was evident in my eyes. As a flash of lightning, my face took a form of surprise. The sad announcement of the command of my elder was unexpected. My elder, Father Achileos, saw my hesitation, but he paid no attention and continued, after this, you are to place on the tomb the holy book that is kept at the vestry of the Holy Sepulchre. Precisely at the page where the holy prayers of the holy light are found, you will place a thick candle. At hearing the second command and the words thick candle, whatever faith I had vanished. A black cloud of unfaithfulness tried to cover my whole soul. Candle? I asked with astonishment and dismay. What is the need of the candle? I didn't quite finish my exclamation of doubt, and as thunder in time of serenity, the most strict and severe voice of my elder was heard. Where is your faith? Where is your obedience, the greatest virtue of a monk? Where is your piety? Have you lost them all? You heard candle and you are overcome with unfaithfulness. The devil fought with you and has conquered you. He put in you thoughts of impiety and disrespect. Don't you know that our orthodoxy is supported by faith, and the faith of Christians endures in whatever trial or endeavor? Be on your guard not to lose your soul. Be careful, Father Mitraphanes, be careful. Don't trifle with the divine. With devotion and prudence you must obey me and do whatever I tell you. Don't betray our blameless faith. Sternly he got up from his chair. Do you have anything to ask now? No, I answered him. I made a prostrate and I kissed his hand. Go, and may God be with you. Do everything with accuracy and in the correct order.